Recording in progress.
So, quick recap on yesterday. We were again talking about human behavior and why we do the things that we don't do. And we discussed the four first basic human needs, which are the need for certainty and the need for uncertainty or variety. Remember, we live somewhere on that seesaw of needing so much certainty that we never take any action, or needing so much uncertainty that we make crazy rash decisions and mistakes constantly. So we're all kind of somewhere on that spectrum. But as Tony Robbins finally said, famously said, the success of your life will always be in direct correlation with the amount of uncertainty that you can comfortably handle. The other phrase, more common phrase we used was, he who dares wins, Rodders. He who dares wins. Fortune favours the brave, and everything in between. So, I'm going to talk about some quite deep stuff today, which I think, based a lot on there were some amazing comments from you guys in the private Facebook group on, was it Friday, I think, especially you ladies that have handled coming out of very toxic, very difficult relationships, that really welled me up. And to have had a part in empowering you to make those decisions, to make changes about something that was toxic in your life that you hadn't done before, made me feel really amazing. I only kind of nudged you in the right direction. So, but respect on all of that. So brings us nicely into where we start. We then discussed the other needs, love and connection, and significance, and how they can both be good and bad dependent on which way we look at it. And we finished up yesterday with, really talking about when you are on fire, just contributing to the world. That is when the real magic happens. Your power lies in your ability to serve. And that phrase that I went back to, that I believe people get so wrong, which will skyrocket your life forward, is these two things. Getting up every day. How can I contribute to the world? Who can I help today? And how can I put the needs of others before those of my own? Not because I am less. My favorite army phrase of all time is, nobody is below me, nobody is above me, nobody is below me, always beside me. So again, putting other people first and looking at how you can serve and contribute isn't about you being less than them. It's that you understand that you will grow through helping others. And the way that so many people, this is a fine line where people get it wrong. So many people get that wrong, and they only gain significance. You see this all over the internet, especially in my industry, right? The only way some coaches know of how to kind of build their profile and make their self feel good is by pulling other people down. Trying to be significant by proving that they are better than everybody else. Now, that's not what it's about. We can, make ourselves feel significant by making other people feel more significant than we are, and growing through that. So it is a fine line to understand. But as I said, the power lies directly in your ability to serve and help people, not your ability to make out that you're better and you're above everyone else. So, what was I want to talk about today? So as a parent, we all want the best for our kids, right? Without any shadow of a doubt. Unless you're a terrible parent. I don't think we've got any terrible parents in here. And what I think I've learned over the last 5 years is, it doesn't come with no instruction manual, does it? There's people who will kind of give you little bits of information, and there's an incredible book actually called The Book That You Wish Your Parents Had Read. But there are no set rules, just like life. And we're all doing our best. I've said this all along, even how I went back and handled the stuff with my own father that kept me stuck for so many years. I I can now look back and saying, I don't know what grief he was struggling with at the time. I don't know what he was going through. I don't know why he made the decisions that he did for so many years of my life, not just the first 5, but, you know, the latter kind of 7 after that until I went to live with my grandparents. But I can now honestly, hand on heart, say in whatever format, he was just doing his best with the emotional tools that he had available to him and his level of emotional intelligence at that moment in time. Which brings me on nicely too. When we talked about relationships having to be based on unconditional love, which is I love you no matter what, versus conditional love, I will love you if X, Y, and Z. Now, I journaled out why that will never work. Because think about what we're discussing, our human needs. What happens with your human needs throughout time? They change. They might change every week, every month, every year. So that's why a relationship which is unconditional love, which is conditional love, which means it's based on one person filling the needs of another, will never ever work because the needs change. Like I could get with someone now and they fill my needs currently of where I am at this moment in time, but 6 months down the line, my needs are probably going to be completely different. So the person who's fulfilling my needs now wouldn't fulfill my needs in 6 months, which is why any form of relationship must be based on conditional love, not needs. Mark is in Spain in the sun, in the sunglasses. Everyone give Mark one of them. Anyway, back to the point. So we're all doing our best with the resources we have. But this is where I think we can sometimes come unstuck as humans and especially as parents. So we feel we have to be perfect. We feel we have to be the perfect dad, the perfect mum. And, you know, one thing I think is that's another thing that sets people up for a fall, and that's another thing that I struggled with for life, and it goes back into that famous phrase that I did on the reel. It's not really famous, but you know what I mean. That's better. There we go. As long as we continue to blame somebody else for anything in our life, we're always going to be stuck. Yet the amount of people that I speak to, you know, that still blame their parents. People in their 20s, 30s and 40s that blame their parents for where they are. And no matter how good or bad they were, I guarantee you one of the single most things that can destroy your life and destroyed mine for many, many years, and being quite open here, is carrying anger and resentment against your parents. Making it their fault that they're why you are where you are. I'm this way because my dad never X. I'm this way because my mum ever did Y. And there's a lot of bullshitters out there who simply don't do the work, don't do the emotional work, don't do anything they need to do to move forward, and hide behind the excuse of blaming their parents. I know loads of them. 40-year-old men still hiding behind the excuse of blaming their parents. Cover your kids' ears, but fucking grow up. You cannot be in your 40s and be still blaming your parents as the reason why you are where you are. Yeah, I get it because I did it in my 30s. So don't take it to heart. Now, I think sometimes, whether it comes down to people or parents or other things, the reason why we behave the way we do is because this perfectionism as parents and wanting to keep kids safe and wanting to provide and all these things, and never wanting to admit they're wrong. Some parents will never ever admit they're wrong. They believe their way of doing everything is the right way and everything should follow suit. is because, again, it triggers going back to that initial fear that we're not good enough, that we're not good enough as parents. So we go down that route again of masking it rather than admitting it, not saying I'm struggling, I need some help here, I don't understand. No, I'll just keep masking it. And this happens with, again, this is probably going to trigger the shit out of some people, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of people who use their kids as an excuse. Oh, I know, we had pizza again tonight, but it's for kids, innit? Oh, it's, I can't go to the gym, but, I have to be there for kids, innit? And they literally, it becomes the opposite end, is I'll ignore everything that's wrong in my life. I'll ignore the fact that I'm fat. I'll ignore the fact that I drink too much. I'll ignore the fact that I never exercise. I'll ignore the fact that I'm a cardiac arrest waiting to happen, and I can mask this all over, just like the adults blaming their parents. I can mask this all, yeah, but I do everything for kids. Why don't you go to the gym? Oh, too busy with kids. Oh, why did you eat pizza? Oh, kids wanted to eat pizza. Fucking hell. Really? You are the adult alpha parent. You're not, I'm not saying don't ever eat pizza, and I'm not saying don't do things for your kids. Of course you can. But also, don't be that lame and weak that you use them as the reason why you are struggling with all the things in your own life. Because it's another way, it's the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? We can hide our own issues by blaming our parents. Some people do both of these things. I am the way I am because of my parents. Everyone in our family's always been big. Everyone in our family's never had money. Everyone in our family's always smoked, drank, gambled, taken drugs and got into fights. So I must be the same because everyone else in our family's been like that. It's my parents' fault. It's my family's fault. It's the universe's fault. And then they go full circle and it's like, now I can bring my kids in as well. Brilliant. I can use them as the reason I don't go to the gym. I can use them as the reason I eat shit. And I can tell them the same fucking stories that my parents have told me about why the way I am the way I am. And I'm fucking a defenseless victim and I can't change it because everyone in our family's always been that way. It's like, wow, I'm masking myself from both angles. No ownership, no responsibility, no fucking hell, I can do some stuff here. And it's why people never ask for help. Because they can mask and they can protect themselves. I can't do X because I had kids. I can't do X because it's my parents' fault. Blame. Boring. Stop it. Anyway, so the reason why it happens, right? The reason why some people signed up to this plan and have struggled from day one, but never found the strength to go, hey team, I'm struggling with my fitness pal. Can somebody help me? Of course you can. There's over 100 people here that will happily help you as long as you need. It's why some people will never have done a single, I guarantee you there were at least 5 people that joined the last enrollment, which is now finished. If you're watching this, it's probably going to be the last one you get to watch, I'm sorry. Will not have done a single exercise session because they were too afraid to say, sir, can I have some help? Nothing will hold you back like not asking for help. Trust me. Towards the end of, when did I start working with Paul Mort? 2019, I think. Had a very successful first year, and you might have seen that as a straight line to success, and me then winning Paul Mort's Elite Man of the Year out of 200 plus people, including CEOs, multimillionaires, and everyone in the UK. That wasn't a straight line to success, because I had a lot of periods when I did this. I'm 12 years old, I'm struggling, I can run to my bedroom, I can put my hands over my eyes and hopefully nobody will notice, and then I can walk away and I won't have to ask for help, and my innermost fear of the fact that I'm not good enough will not be triggered. And Paul hammered me and hammered me and hammered me. And what basically happened was, it was coming out of COVID. I'd got my fitness business to a point where it was flying, doing very, very well. And I decided I was going to take my foot off the pedal. I just released Coming On Strong, and it went to number 2 in the Beatport charts. Music was on fire. Nightclubs reopened. I booked 7 back-to-back events, I think, every Friday from the club reopening after COVID. Thinking, that's it. Fucking hell, we are going to do 7 sellouts on the trot. I am going to be loaded. Cryptocurrency was also in its period of refreshing the phone, and you know, making a few £100s every single day. Foot off the pedal, and all of a sudden things didn't pan out. The club didn't even sell out on the first night after COVID. People were a lot more cautious than we expected. Then we had the second event, the second Friday after COVID, and half the people didn't turn up. Why? Because half of them caught fucking COVID the week before. In the club on the Friday before. And then that whole period fizzled out, and I'm like, oh my God, I'd gone through like 4 months. I'd employed a brand manager to run this company. It had gone down almost 50% in terms of income. The clubs hadn't developed the money they had. Crypto had crashed. And all of a sudden I was like, oh shit. I'm really, 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 really in the crap here. And Paul kept messaging me, bro, are you okay? Yeah, smashing it, mate. Straight up lying. Smashing it. The only reason I haven't been in touch, mate, is I'm killing it. I'm so busy, and you know, Laura's running this, and I'm just making music in the studio, and all these things are on fire. Like, internally, I was dying. Financially, emotionally, motivationally. Logan was a year old. Didn't ask for help. Couldn't find the strength to ask for help, because then I had to admit that I'd screwed up. I had to admit that I wasn't on fire, you know. And the second I did, I went, mate, I need to be honest with you. I was like, I'm not in a good way. We solved it in like 24 hours. We ripped strings to shred. That was where who remembers me doing the not to do list at Mindset Mastery, the non-growth habits. The first thing we did was, right, what have we started doing that we weren't doing before, when we were really seriously on fire 8 months before? Well, nightclubs and DJing and this whole thing isn't making any money. It's destroying my energy. So that needs to go, and we got rid of it overnight. We looked at all the other things that needed to be taken out. What else did I need to stop doing? I needed to stop masking stuff. I needed to stop lying. I needed to start asking for help when I needed it. I needed to stop being a lurker and run into my bedroom like a 12-year-old boy and putting my hands over my ears, because I didn't want to admit that I'd screwed up. And we're back to that same thing, the same childhood trauma, the same thing that was being triggered. If I fess up, I have to admit to Paul that I'm not quite on fire as I was before. And that triggers my innermost fear. And what's my innermost fear? All of our innermost fear. That I'm not good enough. And that I can't do it. And that he's only going to love me if I'm smashing it. He's not going to love me if I'm not. And this is what we get used to. And this is what happens, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in the career, whether it's in the fat loss, whether it's in using MyFitnessPal, whether it's with our mental health, whether it's with any of those things. Like, drop me a virtual hands up or type hands if you're watching on replay, comment #replay. You know, if you struggle asking for help. Like, and I think it even goes back to, you know, even GCSE exams and stuff. And when I really journal deep on this, I'm like, I can actually remember my granddad like asking me like if I wanted some help with my homework, and I'd be like, no, I'm fine. No, I can do it. Rather than have some help and it be a half an hour job, I'd much rather try to figure battling this out on my own for 3 hours. And then that's moved into adult life. And so often we need to understand, right? And this is a shorter training today because I'm back again on Friday. This is probably the biggest take home that I want you to take from this training, or any of them, is that we have been very often programmed into or confused into thinking asking for help makes you weak. Asking for help means you're not good enough, not smart enough, not clever enough, not resilient enough, not strong enough. Asking for help doesn't mean any of those things. Asking for help makes you the smartest person in the room. It makes you the strongest person in the room. It makes you the most courageous person in the room. Because even though it will trigger your innermost fear that you're not good enough, you have found the strength to overcome that and say, I need some help. That's why the question is on the weekly check-in. Do you need my help with anything this week? I'm specifically coming out and asking you. And the amount of people that just write, nope, all good. And I know it's a lie. So don't think asking for help makes you weak. Don't think it's bothering other people. And again, this is something that I realized as well. I've talked about this many times. In fact, I told the story at Mindset Mastery about Craig will know some of the lads who I'm talking about there being some lads in warehouse, and they were training and they had their little fucking stringed vests on that didn't even cover their nipples, so I had to look at both their nipples while I was training, and they were grunting on every rep. And then not even just the one grunting, there was the other one that was shouting at him to grunt more on every rep. And it was basically, hey girls, look at us. Hey girls, look at our muscles. Hey everyone, come and look at us. Let's see how much attention we can try and get to get some attraction from the females. And all the females are thinking, fucking wankers. Anyway, when I told the honest story about it, that was me 10 years ago. So why is it triggering me? Because it was something in me that used to be in me that I just triggered my head, and I didn't really like myself back then. And, you know, that was why it triggers me. So if we see someone doing something and we generally think, fucking prick, there's something they are doing that is within you or was within you that you haven't yet got a handle on, that's holding you back. That's why their behavior is triggering you. Otherwise, you just wouldn't be bothered. We only get triggered by the truth. And the other example that I was going to use, I went to I've been to several kind of mastermind type events this year. And at both events, there were two individuals. I don't particularly like either of them. They're both very loud, very brash, probably love the sound of their own voices more than they love the sound of anything else. And, you know, to the level where the person holding the mastermind at one point had to say, is there anyone who's got any questions apart from X and X? Because every time one of the five speakers stopped speaking, and then they were probably a little bit like me. Both definitely borderline ADHD. But to the level where it was like, fucking hell, like you two, will you just, like, it's not the X show, someone else is running this event, not you. And so then again, I'm going past that, I'm thinking, why is this triggering me? Why am I feeling this way about these two individuals? And that's actually an opposite thing. It's not because that's something that used to be in me. I've never ever been that person. Certainly not at a big event like that. I've discussed this at length, that I went to Paul's masterminds for the first 6 months and never even spoke or asking a question. It's the opposite thing. There were questions I actually wanted to ask, but I didn't have the balls to put my hand up in that room. So the fact that they did, and they could just relentlessly ask them, and yes, give me the microphone, I'm going to turn this into my show, and I'm not just going to ask you a question, I'm going to tell you a whole story about it, and everyone in the room's just going, oh, for fuck's sake. But the part that's triggering me is that they were really, they just had the balls to, does anyone want to help? Yeah, I'd fucking love to ask you 20 questions, and I've got the balls to do it. Whereas I didn't. So again, it's triggering me from a different level that, oh God, maybe I don't want to go as far as them, but I wish I did actually have the fucking balls to put my hand up now and ask a question, rather than kind of shaking and being a bit sweaty and just thinking, if I even ask for that microphone, I'll ask something that's going to all come out the wrong way, and I'm going to look a right prick in front of all these people in this room. So again, it's triggering from a different angle. Does that make sense? How it can be one or the other. It can be something within you that you do that you don't like about yourself, or it can also be something within you that you haven't found the strength to do that you wish you could do. But in whatever context, it sounds so simple, but the quickest way to get help is to ask for help, and just make sure you're asking the right person for help and finding the courage to do it. So, if your mate's got 4 divorces behind him, a string of failed relationships, and 17 kids strung across the UK, he's probably not the right person to go and ask for relationship advice. If your parents have never ever started a business and you're thinking about starting one, they're not the right person to go and ask for help. So again, always ask for help, but always as well think, right, who's, the amount of people who take advice from someone who hasn't achieved what they want, isn't where they are, or isn't further ahead in the game than them, confuses me. Like, I'm not going to take advice from someone who hasn't achieved what I want to achieve, because to me it would be nonsensical. So, find the strength and courage to ask for help, but make sure it's from the right people. And just the more you can override that fear of understanding that asking for help doesn't make you weak, asking for help doesn't mean that you're not good enough, asking for help doesn't make you smart, it actually makes you the smartest, most courageous person in the room. Because the quickest way to get the help you need to get where you want is to ask for it. Guys, I love you all. Stay unbreakable. Have an amazing day, and we'll be back 8:15 Friday morning. I love you all.